Alright, I'm going to show you how I would replace the tang pins if I lost them on one of my cheap Chinese balisongs. As you can see here, I already replaced them on this one. They're brass pins and they hold up pretty darn good. So if you still have the pins, you could always epoxy it. You know, you should go for the simplest solutions first. But if you've completely lost them and you have no other options, this is how I would go about replacing them. Some drill stock. You can either use this steel stuff that you find at hardware stores. You'll find this in the welding steel. I have brass only right now, so we're going to use brass. But you can get this in multiple dimensions. If you're looking for even smaller stock than you can find at the hardware store, you need to go to a hobby store. They use it for RC modeling. Alright, for the next step, you want to take your power drill and just put it on top of a table on the edge, making sure that the air vents clear the table so it can still get adequate cooling. And you take a clamp, and what this does is act as a pivot, so when it moves on that pivot. The next thing we're going to do is make a trigger holdout, a variable trigger holdout. This most drills will have a trigger lock, and they lock it, and it's always on. But what we want is to just jam something in between our our vise and our trigger, so that way as we work on the material, it pushes the drill this way, and you're gonna have to put your leg in front of the clamp, and it'll press the trigger however much you want. We chuck in our piece of brass or steel rod. And by the way, if you happen to find a piece of rod stock that fit the holes of your trainer perfectly, you're set. You really don't have to be that long for most trainers. So I'm going to go with a shorter length and cut it in half. But just for safety, I'm going to go with over 3/4 of an inch. So we're going to use the file to get it down to the size of the hole. Oh boy. On our trainer blade. So we're aiming to make these 2 tang pins. Alright, so we've weaned down our stock quite a bit here. Let's go ahead and unchuck it. That's not enough, huh? A little bit more. Alrighty. And this is how much material we've weaned off of it with our file. Look around you. Is there anything you can use as a rudimentary lathe? Alrighty, I chucked this back up in the drill, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut the pin in half, so I already have one half really nice and made. I'm just going to eyeball this. You could do this as well. You can measure it if you want. Go nice and slow. Don't cut yourself. You don't have to. Just go ahead and make 2 tang pins here while we're at it. Go ahead and chuck some of these in here for the rough ends. We're going to go ahead and file those down a little bit. We're going to use the power of the power tool we have. And honestly, you really don't need a drill to do this. You could probably just do this with, a file and your eyeballs. We're just trying to work that end off to be kind of smoother than it would be. And if you have to, if you feel these pins are too long, you could go ahead and cut them one more time, or you could actually file them down one more time using the same technique. Take our pins and just kind of throw them into our blade here. Just gonna take my pin and just press fit it as good as I can, and you see it doesn't go too far, because we made it kind of wider than we wanted. If it's not wider than you wanted, you have to go ahead and hit the pin a lot more, get it to fatten out, to stick. You're just going to want to hold it there and give a lot of leverage on the long edge. And we're going to hammer it in. We're just going to do the same thing and just fit it in. And unfortunately, the bottom side, we didn't do it very even, and it's very loose, not like the top side. So now I get to show you what happens if it's too loose. So you go ahead and just kind of center it. Try your best to center the sucker. Get it balanced over the ground. Start hitting kind of lightly from each side. We're just trying to fatten up the pin a little bit. Alright. We've got it fat enough that it doesn't fall out just on its own. You know, we got a cone shape on each side, and what that allows you to do is have these blades a little bit wider out, and you can go ahead and smush them down. And since I don't use locking pins, this is completely fine for me, but you want to watch out if you do go ahead and use a locking latch. I meant latch, not pins. If this is too wide for you, you're going to have to really press down on it to get your lock in when it's open.